Hello everyone. As we all are aware, a new curriculum has been introduced for MBBS or medical graduates in India, which is known as the Competency Based Medical Education. In short, the CBME curriculum. This is an outcome based curriculum where the stress is more on the capabilities of the IMG or the Indian medical graduate at the end of the course. With this in mind, many new concepts have been introduced by the National Medical Commission. Today, let's dwell on one of these newer aspects of the MBBS curriculum. So suddenly we were introduced to a numerous terminologies all of a sudden. So we heard CBME, ECE, foundation course. What was that? Electives, ADCOM, integrated teaching, SDL. So, though there are so many numerous terminologies and many more, today we would like to make a try to introduce you to this topic of self-directed learning, that is SDL. So, before I proceed, let me just tell you what self-directed learning does not mean. Let us just burst some myths regarding the SDL before we start. Does SDL mean self-study? No, SDL is not about doing some self-study. We have been all doing some self-study for several topics. Self-directed learning does not mean doing studying by ourselves, not entirely at least. SDL topic, are these those topics which are not going to be taught by the teachers? No, that is also not right. SDL includes less important topics. SDL means topics for which I will not receive any help. SDL readiness or ability is an all or none phenomenon. So these are some of the myths that are related to SDL. Later in the course, we will learn why it is not so and what are all the different things about it. For this, we will make a beginning of this session related to self-directed learning. I'm Dr. Swati Tikare, Professor of Department of Physiology and Medical Education from Ameen Medical College. Let's begin with a small quote. You learn at your best when you have something you care about and can get pleasure in being engaged in. I'm sure nobody will disagree that learning can be best when we are so much involved and we like to do that. It can be the best type of learning that we can ever do. So, in this session related to self-directed learning, let us try to be little clear with just a few things. It will be in a short duration, let us learn the most salient features of self-directed learning. So the agenda for today's session would be, what is SDL? Why is it needed for me as a medical student? How can I use this? What would be the challenges that I would encounter? And what are the tips to achieve success in self-directed learning? These are some of the things which will be addressed in this particular session. So let's start off with, what is SDL? In simplistic manner, if I have to put in, it simply means SDL is the process of learning in which the learner assumes primary responsibility for planning, implementing, and evaluating a learning project. The key word here is the learner assumes primary responsibility. Or I could also say the learner chooses what to learn, how to learn, and also decides when to continue and when to end the learning project. It's just as simple as that. But we will delve a little more in deeper for that. So coming back again to the myths, little more about it. Does SDL mean it is self-study? No, it does not mean self-study. Self-studies could be any topic, even if the teacher teaches us, after that we go and do self-study for better understanding. Okay? Self-directed learning does not mean it is self-study. STL topic not taught by teachers. Okay. Just because some topic is not taught by teachers, all that does not become self-directed learning. Okay. The next thing is STL includes less important topics. No, it does not mean that whatever the teacher is teaching is very important and self-directed learning topics, whatever you do by self-directed learning is less important. Most of the times they are more important. That's why they have been brought into the self-directed learning domain. Self-directed learning means topics for which I will not receive any help. No, this is also not true. Even though they are self-directed learning, you will get all possible help from the various resources. Maybe they are your peers, teachers, faculty, the library, or the online tools. But only important thing here is you seek help. Nobody is coming to help you. You seek help when you need it. Okay, so that's the only difference. Then last one, self-directed learning, readiness or ability in the students. Is it all or none? Is it that only some well-meaning, well-intelligent, or people who are good communicators, and so on and so forth? So many things. If you put, are only some students capable of self-directed learning? That means if they are capable only, it is all. They are totally well-directed, and others are not able to do. No, self-directed learning is not an all or none phenomena. That doesn't mean that a person is completely a self-directed learner or he is not at all. It's not like that. The self-directed learner, it works over a spectrum, okay? Over a spectrum. It's more clear in the next particular slide that I'll put. The spectrum of self-directed learning begins with the teacher-directed learning. That is, in the beginning, where the learning is being directed by the teacher and the responsibility gradually shifts to the learner. So let's see how this happens. As we are saying, this becoming a self-directed learner is a process, or it happens in stages. First stage, as I was telling you, is a dependent stage. The student is dependent. The teacher's role here is that of an authoritative role. The teacher becomes a coach. The example is where this teacher is taking an informal, informational lecture. Okay, here the teacher is in control of what's happening and all these things. Stage two of becoming a self-directed learner is where the student becomes interested. And once the student becomes interested, teacher takes a little backseat and just becomes a motivator and guide. So these are the places, for example, it could be in a small guided discussion of a small group discussion. Okay, so there is a goal setting maybe done by the teacher, but the student gets involved and gets into it. Third stage is where the students themselves are involved and trying to find out a solution to a problem. The teacher here is there only to facilitate. Okay, whenever there is a problem, they are just going to give some facilitate whether they are going in the right direction in finding the solution for it. If they go somewhere haywire, the teacher comes in. Okay, otherwise the students themselves as the groups are making the discussion and trying to bring out the solution. Discussion facilitated by teacher who participates as an equal. The next, last stage four is where the students become self-directed. That is, they themselves find out, okay, what is that something that is missing? What is it that they need to learn? And to learn that, they come and seek the for the help of a teacher, a resource, a library, whatever. Okay, so the student will come and seek, and that the person is motivated. And here the teacher just acts like a consultant, only responding to their queries. Okay, this is the ultimate part where usually this happens in postgraduate dissertation, internship, and even during the clinical late phases of the clinical uh, postings. So here there is more individual work. Okay, In the stage 3, as a group, the students were together. Here, individually, each student is working upon what is required for that particular individual. Okay, so this is how the self-directed learning moves from the phase of the student moves from the phase of being a very complete dependent on the teacher towards being a self-directed learner. So, what is self-directed learning? Once again, just let us put it in a proper phrase now that we have understood the whole stages and process, everything. Self-directed learning is a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the other's help in diagnosing their learning needs, formulating goals, identifying human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating learning outcomes. So, all of these things, beginning from taking the initiative to making the objectives, then formulating the goals, finding out the resources, then working on how the strategy will work, how they plan to get it done, and then keeping monitoring themselves on and off to see whether they are going in the right path. And again, once they evaluate, again they find out, okay, this is done, this is not done, something more needs to be done, and that again becomes a new goal. So the cycle keeps repeating, and the person becomes self directed, self motivated, rather than an external source directing him for what is required for his learning. So this is all there. But why? Suddenly, why are we talking so much about self directed learning? Why is what's the need for the self directed learning? You all know the roles of an Indian medical graduate. 5 roles have been defined: the clinician, the professional, lifelong communicator, lifelong learner, communicator, and the leader. And he also has to work as a leader and member of a healthcare team. So, in this role of an IMG, you can see the lifelong learner. This is the role in which the self-directed learning is going to help. So there are several reasons why a medical professional needs to become a lifelong learner. Medical knowledge is rapidly expanding. Today's best practice may become obsolete tomorrow. Medical school should focus on lifelong learning rather than rote learning, which is highly wasteful, addressing learning gaps in medical education. Continuing on, this self-directed learning helps to optimize the learning. It caters to individual learning needs, goals, and interests. Everything cannot be generalized. Learning cannot be totally generalized. There are some individual needs. This can be catered to in a self-directed learning. It makes the learners as active participants and promotes deep learning. When we get involved in the learning, in the process of identification, in the process of discussing, doing things by ourselves as active participants, it definitely promotes deep learning than the superficial learning. Promotes collaborative learning and critical thinking. Both of them are very important in medical profession. So now, how? How am I going to use this self-directed learning? Do I know everything about SDL, or how am I going to use it? So the next question is, you know what is SDL, why you need to implement this SDL in your life. And now we will go how we are going to do. Okay, so it's a simple cycle where, as I was telling you, you set a goal, you plan, you learn, then you show and you evaluate yourself. So let's see how this plan works. The first thing that you do is you establish the learning goal. So, what is this learning goal? Do you make a decision that, okay, today I'm going to learn cardiovascular system, cardiac output, and is this self directed learning? Could be. It can be, but it is not always a topic. Or how do you choose a topic for self directed learning? present in your colleges, you may be exposed to self-directed learning where you are given a certain topic. That means the teacher in the beginning is trying to set the objectives by themselves and giving you that this is your goal. You find out, or some of them may be giving you resources also, that this textbook, this video, this things you can read, but you have to ultimately be able to uh, cover this whole concept and all these things. Okay, but slowly, ultimately, when we tell in a self-directed learning, established learning goals means what do we mean? Ultimately, that goal has to be decided by students, by yourself. So, what are those small goals which are useful in self-directed learning? Let me give you an example. Okay, so one day, suppose, let me say, you were posted into a casualty. Okay, you were a second year student or third year student, and you were posted in casualty. Just you are not going to treat the patient or anything like that. You are there to observe, you have to see, learn things over there. Still, uh, uh, what you may find is that in that particular place, what are all you might have observed that a particular intern or a PG or a resident, senior resident, whoever is there, might have examined a patient who came in by recording his blood pressure or record there's some history taking must have been done and some other things you are going to observe. Okay, suppose you see, okay, today in second year actually we were taught history taking, but the things that he asked, okay, all these things, I don't think my history taking is not so very good. I would not be able to take so well. So if you feel, if you realize that, or second time around, if I am asked, if I this patient moves into the in ward also, in the IPD, in the wards also, if I have to take a history on this patient, maybe I don't know enough of all this. Okay, then is the time where it has to click to you that this is my, by next time, by 1 week, by some other this one time limit that you give to yourself, this is a place where I am lacking. I need to do something about it. I don't know history taking in a patient who has come with a history of trauma, probably. Okay, so you go back. This is how you set a goal. Okay, some other student may feel that history was okay for me, but I think the way he was examining, I have not learned that. So it could be many different things for many different people standing right over there. So that's how self-directed learning is an individualized practice. You set your goal there, you think what is required for you over there, then you decide what you are going to locate and access resources. You go back and see which books you can read, which videos you can see. Can you ask your teacher? Can you find out from your PGs, peers, what uh, book they are referring. So you make a list of it. Then you adapt. How am I going to read? Am I just going to read it as a theory? Am I going to discuss it with my friends? And then that would be an activity which will help me to learn. So all these things, the learning strategies, planning, you do that. And then you monitor yourself. Okay, this is what I set out to go, that I wanted to learn something about the history taking in a case of trauma. Do I really know right now? Okay, here you don't wait to find out that when will the teacher going to give us this objective, you are going to how to take history of a patient in trauma. Okay, that particular SD objective may never be there in the whole of the your career. Okay, how to take history in a trauma patient, it may not be there because there are n number of cases, there are n number of conditions. Everything cannot be there in the curriculum. Okay, so some of the things, as soon as you encounter, you only make a idea about what is required and you start doing the process. So after a period of time, you reassess whether you are learned it, what else can be done, are you okay? You can discuss it with your seniors, your PGs, the anybody. Okay, so that even the teachers, that this is what I felt and how it goes. So this is how self-directed learning does not mean a topic. It can be as small as I did not know how to hand hygiene, how to wash my hands uh, is a big proper procedure is there. You may not be knowing that. You may not be knowing something about the waste segregation that has to be followed in the hospital. So the objectives for self-directed learning can be numerous. They are lying there as and where you enter. Whether you enter the lab, you enter the theory class, you're entering the clinics, wherever you go, there are n number of things to be learned. It is left out to you, to your motivation to identify what is that I don't know, what is it that needs to be learned. And that's how you will go ahead. Okay, so this is how you are going to do things for self-directed learning to work. Pillars of SDL, self-directed learning, are three things. First is your motivation. Okay, motivation is one thing which makes you to start the task. Okay, you enter into the task. Then, once you enter into the task, there is self-management. Okay, you have to stick to the task. You have to stick to your plan. You have to stick and continue to it. It's not that you start and you forget. Okay, you have control. And there is self-monitoring and responsibility. You become accountable to yourself. Okay, as a learner, that it needs to be done. Nobody is going to, objective was set by you. That probably one example that we took was how to take history in a patient of trauma. So nobody may ask you, even at the end of 2 3 years, there may not be a probable every, there are hundreds and thousands of things that we need to learn as a medical professional. Each and every task objective cannot be given and it cannot be assessed by the teacher. Okay, so there are multiple things that you learn on your own, multiple things, and this is what is going to help you do that. So learning by oneself, responsibility lies with the student here. Student self-directed learning is student-centered and it is a transformational learning. You imagine that when the motivation came from you, that you felt the need to learn it, you felt the need to decided how you are going to learn, how you are going to implement, how you are going to assess yourself. When you have put in so much of your own self into learning this, don't you think it is going to be transformational? It cannot be superficial learning at all. It is going to be super, super deep, and you will be a lifelong learner. Means it is going to stay, this information, this learning will be so deep that it will stay with you for a long, long time. Okay, so that's why self-directed learning is so very important. So what could be the challenges with self-directed learning? Because here we have a fixed curriculum which you are following, but here in self-directed learning, whatever the things that you are learning, you're not learning from a standard curriculum. Lack of initiative and motivation could be a very huge challenge. Lack of skills required for STL. What are the skills required for STL? We'll just discuss a little later. So if you don't have the skills, it doesn't mean that you can't acquire them. You can acquire them. And not learning in the same pace. Here, when there is a self-directed learning, it's not that, okay, this chapter is over, who is learning how much. We usually make a comparison and then keep ourselves in pace. Okay, so this is not happening in self-directed learning. So these are some of the challenges. The most important, I feel, is lack of initiative and motivation is where you may fail at the first step. That is to become motivated, to take initiative, and to set your goals. Identify the goals. The goals are there lying everywhere. Wherever you go, there is something that needs to be learned. Okay, and you get an opportunity to learn, to think about it. It's called experiential learning, active process of learning, self-directed learning. Everywhere opportunities is there, you have to identify those and do it. Next, little more. If you have not understood how can I be a self-directed learner, let us little more dwell in a quickly. These are some of the questions you ask yourself to become a self-directed learner. What I am being asked to do, So wherever you go to your lab, you go to your clinic, you just ask yourself, what is it that I'm being asked to do? So based on what you're being asked to do, you will try to think whether I'm competent enough, whether I don't want to use the word, whether I'm capable of doing it or I need something else. So that's how, just wherever you go, you just start to think, what am I being asked to do? So what do the next step would be, what do I already know that will help me, and what do I need to know? So in this context, now what is it that I already know and what I need to know? So it gives you a continuum sort of thing. Okay, know the blood pressure has to be recorded probably in a uh, casualty very quickly. You should be efficiently, quickly be able to tie the cuff and record the blood pressure there. So if what do I already know? I know the steps. I know how it is recorded. I know how to tie the instrument. If I have to do it at the casualty perfectly, accurately, what is it I need? I need this. Okay, so that could be something like that. So I just gave an example of blood pressure, but it could be anything. So what do I already know that will help me, and what do I need to know? So if there is something else to know, as we thought in the previous example, I need to know a little more about history taking in a trauma case. Or if I'm going to the lab, I know that hemoglobin is recorded with Sally's hemometer. I know what all the things are, but probably what I don't know is maybe I don't know the history, how it started. Maybe I don't know what is the principle. So something more, what I need to know, try to know that. What's my plan? So once I have decided what I need to know, what's my plan? How am I going to get involved? What are the steps involved in doing this, learning this? What are my strategies? Okay. Once you have started your plan, you start doing things in between what you ask, what progress am I making? What progress am I making? And after this, what would I change or do differently next time? Okay. So you started that something was unknown to you. So if you have made so much of effort to identify that, you have learned from where to learn, how to learn, you have implemented, you learned, then you monitored yourself. Now that you have learned, what are you going to do things differently? Okay. So if you can't answer this question, there is no point in the whole cycle at all. Okay. So probably if you began with my trauma history was very limited to only 4 or 5 questions. Now I know there are at least 15 to 20 questions which I need to ask. So these are the things I'm going to do next time differently. Then you're uh, worked upon yourself and your self-directed learning has been a success. Okay. So this is how you find opportunities in the beginning. We start out with there are dedicated self-directed learning classes, as you know, in every subject. Maybe in first year anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, or in the second year who have moved into CBME. In microbiology, pathology, and pharmacology. So we have dedicated uh, topics, not topics, duration for which the self-directed learning is there. So why we have started off like this is ultimately we are just training you how self-directed learning is going to happen. So ultimately, as you move across 4.5 years, you should be able to identify your own gaps in learning and make a plan, objective, implement, learn, fill the gap. Again, identify new gaps and keep learning. Learning never ends. Okay, learning never ends. So, in summary, I would like to say that this very picture summarizes everything. Okay, we have two triangles. The first one is an inverted triangle showing the teacher responsibility. The second one is the student responsibility. Uh, so as we move from up to downwards, the first one on the left side, teacher responsibility on the base, focused lesson. Focused lesson. That is, I do it. I do it means I as a teacher do it. Okay, I take a lecture, informative lecture, and I ask you to learn. Completely teacher oriented, completely dependent. Okay, next we do it. Okay, we do a discussion. It's a small group or a tutorial or something like that. Make you involve yourself, and then we give a guided instruction. That is, you see how the triangle is. The responsibility of the teacher is going on decreasing. The responsibility of the student goes on increasing. Okay, here the responsibility of little bit has increased, right? The next step is you do it together. It means the students together sit and you have the help of your friends, peers to work on that solution. Okay, it's collaborative. Again, lesser responsibility of the teacher, more taken over by the student. Lastly, the independent learner, the student, you, the student does it alone. That means you decide on what you need to do and everything else. Okay, totally it is dependent on you. Still, you can see there is a small portion for the teacher's responsibility right here. That is where anytime you think you need some help, there is the teacher or any resource that you can go and approach so that you can clarify yourself that you are on the right path, or you can get tips to improvise how better you can be. Okay, so this is how the self-directed learning works. It's a continuum, it's a spectrum where you move from being a very dependent individual in your learning to a self-directed independent learner. I hope this clarifies a lot about self-directed learning. Thank you.